Hello there, and welcome back to the booth here at Pro Tour Aether Revolt. We're in Dublin, Ireland. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe here with Luis Scott Vargas. Luis, our round 8 and final match of the day here looks pretty good. We've got two undefeated players. We've got Thien Nguyen from the United States on Black-Green Constrictor, a deck that we've seen a fair bit of. But again, 7-0 in the hands of Thien here. He's on Team Fire Squad.
Ooh, sounds imposing.
Yeah, it does. On the other side of the table, Cesar Segovia from Panama. Now, Cesar is playing in his first Pro Tour here thanks to a really great performance at the World Magic Cup, and they have earned their way. And boy, is Cesar taking advantage, 7-0 himself. Thien got here through GP Pittsburgh and some other good performances. He's been playing GP since about 2011. So not super experienced players down here, but I'll tell you what, they're 7-0. Let's send it down to the feature match area for round 8 here from Pro Tour Aether Revolt. Hello and welcome to coverage of Pro Tour Aether Revolt. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Luis Scott Vargas. And we're ready for round 8 action here, where we have two undefeated players. There's Team Nguyen. And, Thien, like I mentioned before, is on Team Fire Squad. His opponent, Cesar Segovia. From Panama, both of these players, 7-0, and looking to stay undefeated as they work their way towards day 2. Only one can do so, though. Now, matchups-wise, we've got Black-Red Aggro in Cesar's hands, Black-Green Constrictor. And there's the namesake card right there for Thien Nguyen, the Whining Constrictor, and that's, of course, going to be one of his better plays on turn 2. Assuming that it survives, it can do some pretty dumb stuff going down the line here. Yeah,
the follow-up you really want here is Rishkar Pima Renegade.
He just drew it.
Does he have a third land?
Doesn't look like it.
Oh, because if he had
a
second Whining, this game could be over very quickly. If Thien Nguyen draws a third land, he gets to play Rishkar, put essentially 3+1/+1 counters on both the Whining Constrictors, and just attack for 10, and that just ends the game.
That is just a game ender. Wow. Cesar has a Heart of Kiran on his side to try to deliver the beatdown, but like you said, if that untapped land comes off the top of the deck for Thien Nguyen, we could see this one end very quickly. And it looks like, was that a Hungry Flames there from Cesar? He's not messing around. He knows that there's some pretty gross possibilities that can happen here. Though, as it turns out, no land there for Thien Nguyen.
Well, he's still got a pretty good follow-up here because it looks like he's got a Walking Ballista, which comes in as a 2/2 thanks to the Whining Constrictor.
Okay.
With the camouflage dice at the ready.
Yeah, small and hard to see. The double trouble. Rashad's to the rescue there, though.
So this Black-Red Aggro deck has a lot of similarities to Mardu vehicles. It has a better mana base. It's only 2 colors instead of the 3.5 that Mardu tends to play, thanks to the blue splash. And it's a little faster and more streamlined. It has not as much of a powerful late game, but still has additional speed to make up for that.
And wow, looks like Cesar's taking a much more controlling role here with his Black-Red deck. He has access to some very good removal spells, and he fires off 2 of them there. And Thien cannot buy a third land. He's had some of his most powerful cards in hand, and really the ability to have a completely broken spot, but he just can't have it. All right, and now Cesar Segovia gets to start attacking with that Heart of Kiran. And wow, look at this. What a beautiful turn of events for Cesar. And now there's that third land for Thien Nguyen. Is it too late is the question.
It may not be. Being able to make your Whining Constrictor into a 4/5 and your Rishkar into a 4/4 means that Thien gets to attack Cesar down to 10 and have a blocker out for one of the Scrap Heap Scroungers. The other one can crew the Heart of Kiran and send Thien down to 7, but drawing that land was very valuable.
Thien has a couple of removal spells in hand as well. It looks like he's got a Grasp of Darkness and a Fatal Push.
So Thien's going to take another hit from this Heart of Kiran, but after that turn, things don't go that poorly for him if he's able to leave up removal. Though Cesar has one of the really cool cards in his deck, Weldfast Engineer.
Ooh.
Not only is it a high draft pick, it's also very instrumental in this red-black deck by pushing in extra damage, being a 3-mana 3/3 that essentially does 2 points of haste damage the first turn and two extra points thereafter.
Thien says, do you mind if I read that? I didn't get that past me in the draft earlier today.
And what it can do here is it can actually make one of the Scrap Heap Scroungers into a 5/2, which makes it attack without fear into that Rishkar. So Cesar also has the option of making Heart of Kiran into a 4/4, then going to beginning of combat, making it into a 6/4, and then attacking with both Scroungers and the Heart. Thien blocks the Scrounger, takes 9, falls down to 2,
combat,
and then
can he still crew?
is very close to delivering lethal.
Looks like Thien has a question here for our judge.
He declared combat and he's trying to crew with that.
Okay, so is it correct you declared combat?
Yeah, I say combat.
Yeah.
Yes, and I don't. I try to.
And then you crew it?
Yes.
Okay, that's not allowed. Before you declare in combat means that you want to declare your attackers. That's how the shortcut works. If you did not crew your vehicle, our policy is that you cannot crew your vehicle after you ask for combat. If you want to do an effect before attacking, you have to announce that before mentioning combat.
Then I can do that crew.
You cannot crew, no.
But I
You-
trigger.
Well, he missed his trigger because.
No, I only say combat because
sorry.
it's the beginning of combat, and I don't try trigger because I.
Yeah, Cesar has a good point here. So
Yeah,
the way
I
this
believe he's
actually
correct.
works is that after you end your main phase, there's a
Let me read
beginning of
first for a
combat step where things like this trigger go on the stack. And he wanted to crew his vehicle in that. And the judge was saying that the standard shortcut is actually, when you say, I'm going to go to combat, is that you're saying, I want to go to my declare attacker step and
Right.
skip over it. So Cesar's clarifying that with the judge, and we'll
just
see how it
mentioned
ends up.
combat.
His point is that he has a beginning of combat trigger, and he
Yeah.
wants to crew with that trigger,
Didn't
presumably
announce
still in the
trigger,
stack if he's
that's
going
okay.
to that.
That's okay, that's not an issue.
Okay.
But what happens after?
Nothing else.
I understand.
Yeah.
So you mentioned declare attackers.
Though if he's in his beginning of combat with Heart of Kiran uncrewed, he can't target Heart of Kiran with the Weldfast Engineer ability, though he can target a Scrap Heap Scrounger, which may be the play he wants to make anyway.
Yes.
So it pays to be precise at the Pro Tour, but from my understanding, Cesaro actually was handling this correctly. But we'll see how things play out from
Yeah,
here.
that's what I heard as well. So we'll let them sort this out. In the meantime, you can see that this game is quite close between these two players. They're both looking to push through damage, and they both have good ways to do it. Why don't we take a look at one of our side tables while we wait for that ruling? Sometimes it can take a minute for to get everything correct. So let's take a look at Brad Nelson. He's on the left-hand side of your screen there from Team Genesis. He's playing against Lucas Blohan, also on Team Genesis, by the way. This is a team fight.
Though not the same deck. Lucas tending to play a more controlling deck here with Torrential Gearhulk as the finisher. He actually has left out the Saheeli Rai Felidar Guardian combo, which a lot of the Jeskai decks do play, opting to finish with just Torrential Gearhulks or potentially a Dynabolt Tower.
Do you think he gets some advantage from that? Like, do you think when people sit down that they're going to assume that that combo is going to be in the deck and that he can take advantage of that assumption?
Oh, I know he gets some advantage from that. When 80% of the Jeskai decks have the Saheeli combo,
Yeah.
your opponent's leaving in removal for your Felidar Guardian. They're not tapping out because they fear the combo, and Lucas is maximizing that potential. It does fall off later in the tournament. When Lucas is playing round 14 for top 8, his opponent's going to know he doesn't have Jeskai or Saheeli and Felidar Guardian in his deck. But in the early rounds of the tournament, there's basically no way to know, except, of course, here they're teammates, so I would expect Brad to have that knowledge.
Go. Yeah.
And Lucas, with a Planeswalker and a Torrential Gearhulk here, he's got Jason Raveler of Secrets, a full grip, his casting anticipates. It looks like he's very far ahead.
Yeah, it certainly does, especially given that Brad's board is a clue token and a servant of the conduit. Nothing super impressive there for Brad. Lucas is at 14 life as well.
Oh yeah, and he's just going off with Jace.
Look at his hand. I've seen Brad come back from some very improbable scenarios this tournament. In his limited round in round 2 he did, but this one looks like it's a lost cause, and it looks like Brad's going to agree there. And they're going to continue on. And we'll check back in on our main table. It looks like they're still getting things sorted out there.
My point.
That's fine.
Then, if I understand, I only can target for this ability for these two creatures, and I can crew for attack with this creature.
And it looks like they've just finished with the ruling, and Cesar is just clarifying what it is that he's able to do now that the ruling's been
I
given.
can only say combat. I don't declare any creatures.
Yeah.
By the way, you do see the players wearing headphones in the feature match area. I saw a few of you asking about that. And that's just so that they don't hear the ambient sound from us. We've got a viewing area behind them with rabid Magic fans watching.
Yeah, the Magic fans have been extremely loud, so the headphones are necessary. Bringing signs for their favorite players and whatnot.
Right. And it's kind of cool. The system we have set up is there's microphones on those so that the players can talk to each other because, as we see, communicating between the two is very important, and the judges can kind of plug themselves into the conversation as well, and so that they can hear and the players can
be
hear.
consistent. The point is, you are proposing a shortcut to declare attackers. You say combat means you want to declare attackers. So at this point, this trigger is missed. You forgot because you are declaring attackers. This cannot be proved.
If I can say any attacker.
At this point, you are in declare attackers, so you have to point to the creatures that are attacking.
All right, so you can
cannot
hear what
put
the
any
judge is
triggered
saying.
abilities on the stack.
I would not be shocked
understand,
if we
or-
had an appeal here. That does happen quite often, though.
Spanish, I can collect one. Sure.
Start actually requesting a Spanish-speaking judge, which is also a very good idea.
That's a good idea,
Just
too.
making
just to
making
make
sure you're communicating clearly.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to go look at table B, where we've got Toru Inoue, and he's playing against Jan Cassander. And we'll let our main match figure out what they need to do.
Looks like we keep cutting
the
in.
chat weighs in with their opinions on it.
I'm not sure if chat is.
not-
I think they're
they don't
into
really
the live
mind.
looking game. They're not really worried about the judge ruling.
So how are we looking here
Well,
for Jan
there's a
versus
torrential
Toru?
gear hook and a full group of cards against an empty board. So I think I've seen this game before.
I have seen this one. I know this story. Does not end well for Jan Cassander.
I guess. Can I use it up the one time?
Sure.
When it rains, it pours.
Yeah, you can do it.
All right.
And
There
that's
we
going
are.
to do it for that one. Yeah, I know that Jan's wearing the headset, but he must have been thinking the same
Quick
thing.
shout out for all the Ice Age lands Toru is using.
Okay. We made sure to get that in there as well. Now you can see that does mean we're on a little bit of a shuffle cam, so we'll just take a few minutes here to take in the scenery. We're using a stage that's actually in the middle of where all the players play this time. It's really cool. It's raised up and then it's surrounded by all the other players who aren't in the feature match area this time, which I think is a neat little change. You can see on our back table, Lucas and Brad just getting set up. I'm sure we'll check them out once they're ready to go.
It'll be early enough in the game that a torrential gear hook will not be in play. We can almost guarantee that if we start in the first couple turns.
That's right. And it looks like what we've got is what Cesar had requested, which is a Spanish-speaking judge. Just to be clear, this is a very fine interaction that we're talking about here, and there's a lot of minutia that is actually quite important to a ruling like this. So I'm not surprised. Ooh, take a look at that. You can get your name on that. You can see the names of Pro Tour champions of years gone by. And what happens is if you win the Pro Tour, you get that one on top, the one that specifically says Dublin. So that's your trophy, but you also get your name forever etched upon that bottom part. Yes, your name is on there. I see you looking.
I was just checking.
I saw it earlier. It says Berlin 2008.
That is correct.
I did notice the next one said Gabriel Nassif, though.
Also correct. It was a hard fought battle.
I thought, that would be pretty cool if you had, two right next to each other. Have you ever considered that as an option?
I wanted to leave some space for others.
rato que no, sino que declaro fase de combate, ahí entonces voy a comenzar a disparar triggers. Lo primero que iba a
It
hacer
looks like
era
we're ready to check out Brad Nelson and Lucas Blahan as they start out their game.
declarar atacante, porque no hice nada.
Ahora, tenemos un short en las reglas de Magic que es que cuando dices combate quiere decir que vas a declarar atacantes.
Glint sleeve siphoner I see on the side of
Brad's got some
Brad's
tricks
side.
up his sleeve. Actually, I've seen a couple of those floating around the various Pro Tour tables today.
Interesting. He's already drawn a card off of it too, thanks to the Aether hub you see.
Brad also made a pretty heads-up play there. He chose not to attack into Immolating Glare because there are not that many cards Lucas could have that would prevent him from drawing a card next turn with the Siphoner during upkeep, and he wants to play around as many as he can because he's going to get a lot of value.
Yeah, he already got 2 more energy thanks to the Servant of the Conduit, so he's just cashing in. That's the second card he's drawn. His life total going down isn't super relevant here against Lucas, so this is just a lot of upside. And look at that grip for Brad Nelson.
And Lucas lacking red mana or a third land at all. He would have been able to finish off the Glint Sleeve Cypher with a shock, but instead he kind of just has to sit idly by as Brad just casts more spells.
Just by way of update, our main table, there is an appeal happening there, so it may be a little while before we get back, so we'll just hang out here on, I'll tell you, it's table C. 2 Immolating Glares in hand for Lucas. But really, it's the mana issues here for Lucas Blahan that are going to start catching up to him, huh?
Definitely, he's in a spot where if Brad spent a lot of time not attacking Immolating Glare, now has enough creatures that he's actually fine with trading for that. Lucas can actually make a pretty decent effort here. If he goes untap, shock the Glint Sleeve Siphoner, he's still at a healthy life total because Brad did miss some attacks earlier, intentionally, because he wanted to play around the glares that Lucas did have. And then Lucas has another Immolating Glare plus some card draw in hand. This game is not over yet. You actually kind of see one of the classic advantages control decks have here, where Brad could have played more threats, but is worried about a card like Radiant Flames or Fumigate. So he has incentive to kind of, slow play his threats and conserve them. That just plays into Lucas's hands if Lucas doesn't have those cards. So you're kind of, in trouble if they have it and you'd play wrong, but also in trouble if they don't have it and you'd play around it. So it's always hard to strike that right balance, and Brad, using the information he has, is doing the best he can, but that might give Lucas enough time to use 1-for-1 removal plus card draw to claw back in and not even have access to a sweeper.
Land number 6 for Nelson. And here's a Rishkar for Brad.
Distributing extra counters thanks to the Winding Constrictor, so Brad's going to get some more damage in here, but Lucas can still Immolating Glare the Winding Constrictor if he wants. He also may have looks like he may have a response here.
Yeah. So that means that instead of getting 4 +1/+1 counters total, he just gets 1 and loses one of his creatures. So that was a nice transaction there for Blahan as well.
And you see the reason that Brad played the Winding Constrictor post-combat is, had that worked out and Lucas took a bunch of damage, Brad wouldn't have played an additional creature, again, for fear of something like Fumigate, or maybe Radiant Flames. But because Lucas used a removal spell, Brad's like, okay, I'll commit more to the board. It ended up looking a little weird because Brad could have gotten more counters off playing the second Winding Constrictor, but he did sequence his spells like that for a particular reason.
He's going to sacrifice a clue here. Keep that pressure coming in.
Good thing for Brad, though, is he drew 2 extra cards off Glint Sleeve Siphoner, 1 off Tireless Tracker. So Brad's up on cards and life and board position, which is good things to be up on. He's also up on energy, if that's a metric that you care about.
I do. I care about it a lot.
Now Lucas is digging for a Fumigate here, and he's got 2 in his deck if he hasn't sided any out.
He has not found one, and still not. So he dug 5 cards through there, but did not see the Fumigate, and that's it. He needed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. He did see 2 spells.
2 life
on top,
versus 4 creatures.
Yeah. That was really the only thing that he could find. So he's going to end up losing that game. And the players will go back to consulting their sideboards. Now, you can see on our lower left, just by way of update on our main table, that's Toby Elliott. He's our head judge here for the weekend. And so he's the one that will be appealed. Now, it does look like they're also using a Spanish-speaking judge as kind of an interpreter as well to make sure that everything's clean on that. Let's take a look at our other table, though, while we let them sort that out. Looks like they're both on 6 cards here. Jan Cassander versus Toru Inoue, and we're just getting underway. Couple of lands for each players as they start to build up their mana. What's on turn 2 here for Jan? Well, he's going to get aggressive. He actually had a choice there.
Scrappy Scrounger also a very nice play against a control deck like this. One of the traditional weaknesses of decks like Jeskai or Blue-Black Control is that Scrappy Scrounger just puts so much pressure on you, and even though Toru killed it, it's likely going to come back later. The games go long, and next time something dies, it will be back.
He had a Grimflayer in his hand that he could have cast there instead, but chose not to. All right, and I can tell you that I just grabbed Toby as he was walking by, just grabbed head judge Toby Elliott by the shirt and pulled him into the booth here for a moment. Toby, we watched some of the ruling, but we didn't necessarily catch everything on our main table there. Can you break it down for us?
Sure. So we have a default shortcut in Magic where a lot of strange shenanigans can happen around the combat phase, and you can create a lot of ambiguity there by saying things like combat. And does that mean you're in the beginning of combat, or you're declaring attackers? So we have a rule that says if you say combat, you are passing priority at the beginning of combat, and if the opponent passes priority back, then you are ready to declare attackers. And this one was actually even more interesting because he has a trigger, which triggers at the start of combat, but is targeted, which means that if he passes priority, he's missed the trigger. So what he actually wanted to do, he couldn't do the way he intended to, because he wanted to give +2/+0 to the Heart of Kirin, which means he has to activate Heart of Kirin before he goes anywhere near combat. Then the trigger can happen, he gives it to the Heart of Kirin because it's a creature at that time. But he didn't actually do that. He just went to combat. His opponent, we made sure his opponent explicitly, he went to combat, paused, his opponent explicitly passed back, and at that point, our default is that you are in declare attackers. Okay, so what would be the cleanest way for him to do that, where he still gets to recognize his trigger from the Weldfast engineer, but also isn't saying, I'm not declaring attackers, I just want to leave my main phase and recognize So
it's
actually really easy. All you do is you modify your announcement. You say, combat, this triggers.
Okay.
Or you can, if you want to crew a vehicle at the start of combat, you say, combat, crew my vehicle. Okay. The key is to not pass priority to your opponent.
I see.
It's something you can modify the shortcut, you can do all that sort of thing. To be honest, with very few narrow exceptions, it's almost always correct to crew your vehicle in main phase, because then if they have a response, you're still in your main phase. If you do it during combat, then you're now limited to only instance.
I see.
So it's actually better to get in the habit of crewing during main phase.
Okay.
Toolcraft Exemplar is the one that makes things slightly weird, because sometimes you need it to grow before you can crew with it.
But the lesson to be learned here is that judges will often interpret, I want to go to combat as I want to go to declare attack.
I want to go attack,
and I'm passing priority and asking for you to allow me to start.
And if you want to do something else, you should just be explicit about what you want to do at that time.
Okay. Thank you, Toby. Appreciate your time. Looks like we are back underway here, by the way, on our match. With Thien Nguyen attacking for another big hit of damage here. And still a relatively close game. Thien not at 6, but at 7 and facing down 6 power. But it looks like Thien has action because he's got 4 cards in his hand.
I think he has the 3 of a kind of Verger's Gearhulk.
You're right.
And a Nissa Voice of Zendikar.
So he actually has nothing.
Swamp, Blossoming Marsh, or Blooming Marsh. So
if Cesar finds like another Weldfast engineer, the game ends?
Yes, but
a shock would do it?
It doesn't look like he has it. And I think that the result of that ruling may have moved the advantage bar slightly.
Yeah. Well, he can't block anyway, so you may as well attack. Drop Thien. Tien's like, yeah, I'm going to 1.
You concede, right? You concede.
yeah.
Okay.
And then you hear Thien just confirming, you are conceding the game, and he said, yeah, that's going to be the game. So game 1 goes to Thien Nguyen. He's up a game now, and he just needs to try to finish off. You see a smile there from Cesar.
That was a wry smile, to be clear.
Yes, I agree with your correction. All right, we're going to take a couple of minutes here, but we'll be back after these messages.
Put what you've learned from watching the Pro Tour into action and compete to become the champion of your favorite game store. Test your skills and your new standard deck at Game Day. Top finishers are awarded special Game Day prizes, including full art premium promo cards and a champion playmat for the winner.
Initiate crowd control.
Want to play in the next Pro Tour? Qualifiers are happening this weekend on Magic Online. For more information, visit mtgo.com.
And welcome back to the feature match area here in Dublin. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Luis Scott Vargas. And we're heading down to game number 2 here as our players are getting ready on our main table. You can take a look here as they look at their opening hands. This is Cesar Segovia from Panama. Had a great run at the World Magic Cup and is playing in his first Pro Tour here. Thien Nguyen on Team Fire Squad. Had a top 8 at Grand Prix Pittsburgh recently. Looks like they've got some keepers here. Oh, it's a nice shot of his hand.
Yeah, that's going to be a good hand for Sky Sovereign. Double Fatal Push buys you time. Hopefully you draw a creature before turn 5 so you can play something else. But at turn 5, Sky Sovereign will do some good work in stabilizing the board.
All right, we're underway here in game number 2. Cesar is going to be on the play. Let's see if he comes up with some punchers here early. He does. So the Scrap Heap Scrounger is going to get Fatal Pushed on end step there. He found a creature.
Yeah, Walking Ballista is not the most imposing creature, but still something to play. And it goes very nicely with the Rishkar Pima Renegade that Thien drew, since that actually, well, he drew a 2-drop and a 3-drop to make this hand quite strong.
Yes, he certainly did. Now we have Walking Ballistas kind of facing off against each other here, and it looks like Cesar is just going to say, let's just trade them. Doesn't favor Cesar because he takes 1 damage out of the transaction, but it does get the Walking Ballista off the battlefield, and it does look like Thien is much better prepared to abuse that. And yeah, this looks pretty good from Cesar's perspective. Now he forces Thien to just play Rishkar Pima Renegade and only put the 1/1 counter on himself, though he does need to answer that too.
Cesar now has a choice. He can ruin his path to Rishkar to prevent Thien from playing a 5-drop like a Verdurous Gearhulk or the Sky Sovereign that we know lurks in his hand. But, we saw this earlier when John Finkel chose not to kill Martin Yuza's Rishkar. Killing Rishkar by itself doesn't seem like the most exciting of plays. You kind of want to save your removal for something more impressive. But if Cesar doesn't, then Thien gets to play a 5-drop, and that is something he does have to worry about.
Yeah. So he's going to go ahead and take it. That could buy him some time. The problem is that, by making that play and doing nothing else for the turn, any 5-drops that Thien has in hand, assuming he was hitting his land anyway, you're probably going to see them this game, right? It's not like he's putting a lot of pressure on Thien. He's still at 20 life.
Yeah.
Sylvan Advocate, where have you been, buddy? Haven't seen you in a while. Nice to have you back.
I've collected company into a lot of Sylvan Advocates.
Yes, you have.
And
unfortunately, when Collected Company left the format, Sylvan Advocate, kind of took a vacation as well. All right, well, there's a potential threat for Cesar Segovia. He's got Aether Sphere Harvester.
Ooh, I like this. I like this sequence.
This is cool.
This actually, I don't think Thien realized that this was going to occur.
I don't think so either.
That was the ambush of the Scrounger jumping back into play, crewing the Harvester, and actually putting Thien in a decent spot.
All right, well, maybe Thien did see it coming.
Yeah, he does have the Sky Sovereign, so that does finish things off. Sky Sovereign threatens to fly over and take down the Scrap Heap Scrounger. Basically, if Thien draws a 6th land to make the Sylvan Advocate a 4/5, it can crew the Sky Sovereign. Or if he draws any other creature that has 1 power, he can crew the Sky Sovereign. So there's a decent chance Sky Sovereign is going to fly over next turn.
And to be clear, you're talking about the Sylvan Advocate in his hand.
Yes, because he has a 2nd copy in his hand.
There's Pia Nalar for Cesar. Okay, Venturous Apprentice as well. These are productive turns for both players, and there's a land.
They are, but Sky Sovereign, this is why people have this card on the sideboard. There's a lot of Sky Sovereigns, floating around, because once you board it in a creature-based matchup, it just eats a creature every turn.
It certainly does, and the pressure that it applies is no joke as well. And you can do both of those things simultaneously. You've got a powerful card if you're facing down any type of creature-based deck, and that's what's happening here. Team just takes out Pia Nalar. And by the way, takes 6. It adds up quickly. There's a Fatal Push for Cesar Segovia. He couldn't interact and make it so that Thien couldn't crew the Sky Sovereign, but he at least can shut off the ability to going forward.
Now, Thien has the ability to animate Hissing Quagmire, block, and then cast Fatal Push. He can remove multiple attackers, but Scrap Heap Scrounger is showing its value here. It's already come back once, and if it dies here, it'll just come back again.
All right, so the only creature left after that flurry is Cesar's Thopter, and now a replacement Inventor's Apprentice. Land off the top, though, and that is a stranded Sky Sovereign right now.
And things are going south quickly for Thien because he does have Sky Sovereign. If he can start attacking with it, it's going to decimate Cesar's forces. But Cesar's hitting for 6 damage a turn, and every turn that Thien misses is just a turn closer to death. He doesn't have a lot of time.
Oh no, he found another vehicle, Luis.
Well, sometimes
Aether Harvester.
too many vehicles and too few pilots. That is one of the risks you run when you put these cards in your deck.
Let's see if he can find it. This door is going to close very quickly on Team Nguyen. 6 damage. You're down to 4. You got 1 more turn to go, but if he can find a creature, he may be able to stabilize. Does he find it? He finds a Winding Constrictor.
He can crew up the chain too. He can crew the Harvester and then crew the Sky Sovereign, but the problem is Cesar has Unlicensed Disintegration and Fatal Push in hand, so he's going to be able to end this game.
Oh, yeah. And that's going to do it. So we're going to get a game 3 between these two gentlemen. Both players 7-0. Again, this is Cesar's first Pro Tour, and he's a game away from being 8-0 to start the thing off. That is an impressive debut from him. Thien Nguyen also, an upstart player, and again, he's playing on Team Fire Squad, and I'm sure they're all rooting for him. To get to 8-0, that's a lot of pro points potential there for that team. I also have a match update for you. We earlier checked in on Brad Nelson versus Lucas Blohan in that Team Genesis fight. And Lucas Blohan actually is the one who ended up defeating Brad there. So Lucas improves to 7-1, knocks Brad down to 6-2 as they rush off to dinner after the tournament here. Dragon Master Outcast is what Tim said did a lot of work for Lucas in that matchup.
Yeah, Dragon Master Outcast is kind of I don't want to say underutilized because it shows up every now and then, but it is one of the kind of low-key threats in the format that in control against mid-range or control against control, a 1-mana card that provides a 5/5 every single turn, it's a potent threat, and I've enjoyed playing with the card.
Yeah, it demands an answer, and that's about the name of the game when it comes to these type of matchups. Is just attrition fight, and if that's the last card standing, you're in good shape. All right, game number 3 incoming here on our main table. Big question, who's going to be undefeated? Cesar, after having won game 2, means he's going to be on the draw for this last game.
Well, the way that game played out, being on the draw is not as big of a disadvantage as you might think because both players have removal and resilient threats. Cards like Aether Sphere Harvester from Cesar, cards like Sky Sovereign, Console Flagship from Thien, that makes them both a little more amenable to being on the draw if they're just trading 1-for-1 with Fatal Pushes and Unlicensed Disintegrations and Grasps of Darkness flying back and forth.
All right, they've both kept their opening hands. Forest kicks things off for Team Nguyen, and there's a Adventurous Apprentice there for Cesar. Uh-oh, 2 forests, no black mana sources so far.
Yeah, and it looks like Thien does have the Winding Constrictor into Rishkar, but no black mana, like you said, means that that's not coming out in the order that you want it to.
Ooh, Kari Zev. First time I've seen Kari Zev make an appearance down in the future match area. Rishkar still does a fine job at 3/3 for 3. Looks like a pretty good blocker on this board. Kari Zev's going to be able to fly by, but Rishkar can grab a Ragavan by the tail, or maybe
keeps the Inventor's Apprentice back as well.
Yeah. Are you jealous of my Japanese Ragavan token that I got from Sho from the
yeah, that is very, very neat.
Yeah, he brought it for me. No artifacts in sight.
So Cesar is missing artifacts, and Thien is missing swamps, or even a fifth land, or well, fourth plus the Rishkar would have allowed him to cast a Virtuous Gearhulk or a Sky Sovereign. So this is going to be a race. Which player will find the piece of the puzzle they're missing first?
Well, I can tell you that Cesar has found at least part of the puzzle. He found an Aether Sphere Harvester off the top of his library there. Curious to see what he does this turn. Oh, Heart of Kiran. In fact, that might have been what he drew for the turn. I may have just misseen that. But it is an artifact.
So now the Inventor's Apprentice is a little bigger, and the Weldfast Engineer has a target, but he doesn't have the opportunity to use it quite yet. Next turn, the Heart could come in for a full 8, because Cesar has another Weldfast Engineer in hand. So as long as he crews in his main phase, then that Heart of Kiran can attack for a substantial amount of damage.
You can ship it in there for what, 10 damage?
That's a lot of Virtuous Gearhulks. Cesar could be in trouble because note that the Walking Ballista, because it has +1 counter, also taps for green mana thanks to Rishkar. So
he
next
will
turn,
be able to cast
Virtuous Gearhulk, put 4 +1/+1 counters on a Walking Ballista, end up with a 4/4 in play, and then you can use Walking Ballista to do something like shoot down Heart of Kiran and end up in a spot where you're keeping yourself from dying, and then you play Gearhulk after Gearhulk and just grind your opponent into dust. Surf on his own Walking Ballista, so he can't quite kill Rishkar. He could take out Walking Ballista if he wanted to.
Based on the scenario that you just described, that sounds very tempting, though. He doesn't know.
It is dangerous to keep that Walking Ballista on Thien side of the board. You have to be aware of something like Virtuous Gearhulk, because that's just one of the big payoffs, and your opponent's stuck on all forests. So what cards could they play with 5 mana? Well, Gearhulk springs to mind.
Is he lining up his potential crew options maybe before making that play? You know, he could use Carry Zev plus the Walking Ballista.
He gets to decide. He could use the Inventor's Apprentice, and then he actually get attacking with the Carry Zev thanks to Menace.
Okay.
Ping in for an extra point, though. Ragavan still is going to meet his maker.
Yeah, Ragavan doesn't really think a lot before attacking. He just kind of runs in there.
So now, Thien can use Walking Ballista to kill. Well, he can't actually kill anything. By pinging the Weldfast Engineer for 1, it prevents it from attacking into Sylvan Advocate. So Cesar can settle for attacking for 6 unblockable thanks to the Carry Zev and the Heart of Kiran. Could attack with Weldfast Engineer and offer the trade. One advantage of that, too, is Ragavan gets to get in.
It's true. But it looks like Cesar's going to take a little bit. Yeah, poor Ragavan. Gets gobbled up by the...
He's got 1,000 lives.
Yeah, he does. Just
big draw step for
showing
Thien.
up
Every
again.
turn, if you can draw just a basic swamp, that's all he wants. Hissing Quagmire.
Hissing Quagmire is not a basic swamp, but it does make black mana next turn.
It does mean that he's never going to cast all the 5 drops in his hand. This game cannot come to a point where he casts all 4 of those 5 drops. He's either going to lose, well...
Wow, and he just lost right there. He just could not get his mana underneath him. And Cesar Segovia is undefeated going into day 2, 8-0 in his first Pro Tour, representing Panama with pride. Fantastic stuff. All right, we do still have a match ongoing here in our feature match area, though. This is the Toru Inoue, and he's playing against Jan Cassander there. This looks a little lopsided.
Nissa Voice of Zendikar doing some work here, making those Scrap Heap Scroungers and Groom Flayers into larger threats. Toru is straight blue-red, it looks like, does not have access to Fumigate, so it's going to need to string together a lot of good removal spells in order to clear this board.
Yeah, I believe I saw a Dynavolt tower on the top there for him with just 1 energy. Maybe he can charge that up and kill something here. Can he really manage this board, though? There's so many threats. 4 creatures all picking up counters.
Some combination of shock. He actually has Brutal Expulsion in hand. That's not a card you see a lot of, but that has a lot of merit here because bouncing a creature and dealing 2 to a creature could add up with something like shock or Dynavolt Tower to end up, getting the board at least a little more clear. Oh, and Brutal Expulsion exiles. So.
Yeah.
Oh, but Toru has to use Aether Hub to get red mana, which actually is critical here because it means he can't also use Dynavolt Tower this turn.
Well, if he plays another instant. There we go. Yeah, he is one short, isn't he?
So the Brutal Expulsion does get to exile the Scrap Heap Scrounger, and it looks like bounce the Grimflayer, so...
That's still pretty productive.
That is a good turn.
He would have loved to have one more energy,
how
though,
many
wouldn't he?
counters are on Nissa?
0.
0? Okay.
Minus. Trigger on this.
Okay.
Yeah, the judge just confirming that there's no counters on Nissa, which is the case. He had just minus Nissa. So she'll be hitting the graveyard here.
So she used her ability was on the stack, so now the Plant and the Scrap Heap Scrounger get an additional ++1 counter. So that means an attack for 7 is still incoming. Toru's definitely still in a fair bit of trouble here, but that was a good turn. The good thing for Toru is that because of Dynavolt Tower and because of the fact that he can play 2 spells a turn, it wouldn't take that much for him to stabilize a little bit more, though Scrap Heap Scrounger is still going to be a long-term problem.
4 toughness right now.
Though that's another Torrential. That's a Torrential Gearhulk. Torrential Gearhulk Brutal Expulsion. That can do some nasty things. Like, for example, Torrential Gearhulk, get back Brutal Expulsion, deal 2 to the Scrap Heap Scrounger. Dynavolt Tower now charged up. Finish off the Scrounger and exile it. Block the Grimflayer, bounce the Plant token with the other half of Brutal Expulsion.
Is that what we're about to see?
That is one of the potential lines.
Disgusting. He's got a pair of removal spells in hand in the form of 2 Harness Lightning as well. He's working his way through. Let's see what he decides to do. Looks like he bounce, block, and then all he has to do is fire off the Dynavolt Tower. Wow, what a devastating turn of events. Does Jan Cassander have something to say about this?
Looks like Grasp to make it so Grimflayer doesn't die to the Gearhulk, in fact wins that combat. So that could have been an immense swing. If the Gearhulk beat Grimflayer in combat there, then I would say Toru is significantly far ahead. The Grasp means that Jan still maintains a fairly sizable board presence here, and Nissa is a problem just because Toru doesn't have a great way to deal with her right now.
No, only 2 energy in the bank for the Dynavolt Tower, and of course his Torrential Gearhulk did not survive that
He
sequence.
was 1 mana short of using Harness Lightning and then Wandering Funeral to finish off Nissa, but he didn't draw it on top of land. Harness Lightning, so Toru still gets to do a pretty good job of clearing the board here, but he does have to worry about that Planeswalker.
It's very tiny, but it's just...
Looks like they've got about 3 minutes left on their clock, Louise, so this is a intense moment here for both of these players.
The clock advantage bar also needs to be changed then, because there's a decent chance that this game could end in a draw, because Toru's not that close to winning, but he's also doing a pretty good job of not losing. And if that's the case, then we could see extra turns where Harness Lightnings and Dynavolt Tower keep Toru from dying, but do not allow him to win the game.
He's got a lot of work to do. Jan's at 20.
Though Virtuous Gearhulk in Jan's hand goes a long way. That has a lot of power and toughness, which means that it's going to stretch Toru's answers kind of to the limit here.
There it is.
Harness Lightning can take out the Gear Hulk, and that'll leave. And Toru has to pay a red with a hub, so put him to 4 energy. Dynavolt Tower goes into 6, Harness Lightning goes into 9, then he spends 4 energy killing the Gear Hulk, so he goes down to 5 energy. He breaks even. Second Harness Lightning can either kill the plant, or Toru can just use the Dynavolt Tower on the plant instead if he wants to kill it.
Thank you so much. Congratulations. We'll see you tomorrow for draft. And big day.
All right, so Gear Hulk hits the graveyard. And is he going to fire off the other one here as well? Just to keep the plant token at bay. So that's going to leave Jan Casander with no actual threats on board and a fully nullified Verger's Gear Hulk, but still Nissa.
This one, because the Trench Gear Hulk is exile. Okay, continue.
Ah, yes. Good point by the judge there.
50 seconds.
And so now Toru can use Dynavolt Tower on the plant token and then use Wandering Fumarole to knock Nissa down to 1, but it doesn't actually finish off Nissa.
Yeah, that is a problem, isn't it? He's so close.
Given that you're not killing Nissa, you also could just sit back and wait and see what Jan does if you want. You don't have to use the Dynavolt Tower necessarily.
Yes, take that.
So I think that Toru could have ended up with more energy, but for people who are asking, he's allowed to overpay. So the energy total is correct as long as he's not giving himself extra energy, which he did not. If he wants to spend 6 energy to kill a Verger's Gear Hulk, he is allowed to do that. And if he marks his energy counter down enough, then that's assumed to be what he did.
All right, time has been called in the round, Luis. So we are going to be entering the 5-turn rule here. This will be turn 0. What do you think?
I think
think they're going to be able to finish?
I think this game is going to end in a draw, but we will see how that ends up working.
There's going to be a few draw steps in there that may have something to say about it, but yeah, the way it looks right now at least. Scrap Heap Scrounger was what Jan Casander drew off the top of his library. He does have Toru down to 5 life, but that Dynavolt Tower threatens to kill creatures of this ilk, right? These smaller creatures.
It does. Though Jan does have a grasp, so it can kill the Wandering Fumarole if he attacks. Toru drew a Revolutionary Rebuff, which is a spectacularly bad draw at this stage in the game, given how much mana Jan has and the fact that Jan actually drew an artifact anyway.
Yeah, that's pretty savage.
Though it's possible if Jan animates Hissing Quagmire and makes kind of attack where he's relying on Grasp, Toru could use Rebuff to counter Grasp if Jan taps low enough. Plus, Rebuff does add 2 energy from the Dynavolt Tower, so it's not completely dead, but can't even cast it on the Scrap Heap Scrounger.
Activate.
Hissing Quagmire's going to get activated.
Ooh, we might actually see the Rebuff be cast here, we'll see. So, if Toru animates Fumarole, he goes down to 5 energy, because he has to use Aether Hub. Those Aether Hubs are costing him a lot of energy.
Yeah, they certainly are.
And then Jan casts Grasp, and then Toru rebuffs it, but has to tap the Fumarole and then ends up using Dynavolt Tower. We're going to skip all those steps and go straight to the Dynavolt Tower part of the game. And how frustrating for Toru that Jan taps that post-combat, and it's an artifact. He still can't rebuff it.
He just can't do anything about it. Oh, he's going to need a nice draw step here.
I think Jan actually has a very good chance of ending the game now.
Was that a Glimmer of Genius off the top for Toru?
Glimmer helps because that kicks Toru up to 5 energy. Now he can kill the Scrap Heap Scrounger in response to Nissa, take 2 from the plants, going to 3. Next turn, with whatever he finds off Glimmer, maybe trying to stabilize, and if he can only deal with 1 plant, he ends up not taking lethal damage.
This is turn 3 for Jan Casander. He's going to start things off by minusing Nissa, and I think Toru's going to say, hold on just a darn second there.
I don't know if he added the darn in, but I think he had the rest.
Look,
Go on.
I'm speculating. Standing by it. And here's a glimmer. So he gets 2 energy from the Dynavolt Tower, and then as part of the glimmer resolving, he'll pick up another 2 energy.
Right, and then Dynavolt Tower will presumably be used to knock down the Scrap Heap Scrounger, and then get attacked at for 2 down to 3, and you just need a removal spell to stop one of the plants next turn. And you've gotten a hard-fought draw. You haven't won the match, but a draw is certainly better than a loss. Disallow actually might do it too, because you can disallow the Nissa -2 next turn to take less damage off the plants.
That is funny.
Because but you still need an answer. You take 2 down to 3 here. Next turn you disallow the Nissa, and you take 2 down to 1. So
crazy.
Jan needs something like Rishkar or Virtuous Gear Hulk. Toru doesn't actually technically need anything to not die here. Though, if Toru has an Aether Hub in him, he could also play Aether Hub, go to 1 energy, cast Disallow, in response cast Revolutionary Rebuff on his Disallow, trigger Dynavolt Tower twice, go up to 5 energy, pay, and then shoot one of the plants, and then still only take 1 damage. So Toru actually has a lot of pretty reasonable outs here. He also has that Wandering Fumarole.
Yeah, it looks like he's lining up that for a potential attack. The shields do seem to be down. There's no Hissing Quagmire there, right? No.
Oh, there's a Scrap Heap Scrounger, so that actually changes the math. So if he disallows the Nissa, he can still make that line of play where he disallows Nissa, rebuffs it, pays, and then kills the Scrap Heap Scrounger. But Winding Constrictor actually changes this completely, because that means that the Nissa -2 will all of a sudden represent way more damage.
Yeah, this is turn 4, but the Winding Constrictor still adds counters to the creatures that are already there with that Nissa. So what is Toru's line now?
He can disallow the Winding Constrictor, but then he goes up to 3 energy. He can anticipate. That's the other card in his hand, it looks like. He goes up to 5 energy. He can shoot Scrap Heap Scrounger. That takes him to -1 from the plants, but then if he can anticipate into a Harness Lightning or a Shock, he still has a chance here.
Okay, disallowed the Winding Constrictor. And Jan Cassandra's just trying to find some way. Here's Anticipate.
Go up to 5 energy.
That seems important.
Cheap spell, cheap spell.
He's got 2 mana.
It really has to be a red card. That's really the only thing that'll allow him.
He found Brutal Expulsion, but it's going to be brutal for him, because now Jan Cassandra gets to minus Nissa.
If he'd anticipated first, he could have found Brutal Expulsion and then gone bounce kill instead of and let Winding Constrictor resolve. I think that may have worked.
Oh, brutal. Jan Cassandra with a smile.
Brutal
there.
indeed.
Yeah, and he's going to improve to 7-1 and knock Toru down to 6-2, and he's going to have to take a deep breath. Those are those really, really tough, tight games down the stretch, and I'm sure you'll go over the lines of play that he just went over there. It does do it, though.
There's so much more to digest there.
Yeah, there definitely was. And there's, of course, a lot to digest on the day as well. That does wrap it up for our feature matches from round 8 here, and our day of coverage from the feature match area here as well. We saw draft and we saw standard, and we're going to be doing it all again tomorrow as well. But it was pretty exciting stuff. A lot of new decks in standard. We saw some pretty spicy stuff earlier in the day. Some of the decks are starting to become more the norm, as we see them. This green-black deck, of course, is one that we've seen quite a bit of with the Winding Constrictors and that kind of thing, and then saw some cats in the feature match area too.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. I do believe that's going to do it, though, for us over here. We will be having a little bit more from Richard Hagan at the news desk in just a moment to kind of put a cap on the day and kind of look back at everything that we've had. But a couple of changes, for us here on coverage. We've got the advantage bar. We've got a little bit of a different feature match area, but stuff seems to be going pretty cool.
Yeah, I was happy with the day today. We've got a lot of aggressive decks, lead to exciting games. To circle back to the last game a second, he still could have disallowed the Nissa trigger, and the Winding Constrictor wouldn't have done anything.
Yes.
So there was a lot of...
And it was summoning 6, so it wasn't going to be attacking anyway.
Games like that are why I play Magic, or in this case, why I talk about Magic. Because games like that just show you all the possibilities. And we're going to see a lot more games like that tomorrow. A lot of really cool plays and, exciting games.
Yeah, great stuff from the feature match area. But for now, let's head back to Richard Hagan at the news desk.
Welcome back to the news desk. Rich Hagan here. As we close in on the end of the day, we're going to bring it all together in a bow for you with our end step show in just a few minutes. But down on the floor, success, success, success in the queue for our own Brian David Marshall to dissect. BDM, who have you got with you down on the floor?
Thanks, Rich. I'm here with Conflagreece's Dimitris Triantafilou. My Greek accent is getting a lot better because so many of these guys keep doing well at the Pro Tour. Dimitris, 7-1. What has this tournament been like for you? This is your second Pro Tour, right?
Yes, my second Pro Tour. First one was back in Sydney before 6 months or so.
Now, although it's only your second Pro Tour, no stranger to Magic. You've been playing the game for quite some time. How long have you been playing?
1997, actually.
How did you find the game?
Through local store, friends in the school. It was really before a lot of years back then.
So you play in your first Pro Tour 6 months ago. How many players did you have to prepare with you for that tournament?
I think we were 2 or 3 players. But now, of course, for this Pro Tour, and because of the recent success that some Greek players had, we made a really strong team, and we tried harder and prepared differently than the other Pro Tours.
Now, what was it like, sitting at home watching your now teammates here for this tournament do well at the World Magic Cup, and actually, the name Conflagrease is, of course, inspired by that winning Conflagrate. What was that experience like for you?
Yes, it was. It inspired me and also motivated me to do better, try harder, play the game, and maybe success can come eventually after as a result of the hard work.
All right, I know these guys have been sitting around waiting for you. Everyone's really hungry, and no one wants to stand between, these guys and their food any longer than we need to. So I'm going to let you guys go. Demetrius, good luck tomorrow. Hopefully we'll be doing a couple more interviews throughout Saturday and maybe Sunday.
Thank you very much.
All right, sending it back up to you at the desk, Rich.
Thanks very much to Brian David Marshall there with Conflagrease doing the business once again. Now, 6-2 is close to the line for halfway to the top 8. 12-4 might just miss out, but maybe someone on 12-4 makes it in. Certainly if you're above 12-4, you've got a great chance of being in the top 8. So what about some of the players who are on 6-2? Well, how about this for a potential top 8 who right now overnight are 6-2? You've got John Finkel, Hall of Fame. You've got Paulavita Dharma-Rosa, Hall of Fame. You've got Frank Karsten, Shuhei Nakamura, Hall of Fame, Hall of Fame. Pedro Carvalho, Li Shichan with his 5 Pro Tour top 8s. Sam Pardy, Valentin Mackel going for his first. All of those are at 6-2. Round about the halfway mark, they are on pace just about for top 8. But someone who's ahead of the curve at 7-1 is Donald Smith, and he's on the floor right now with BDM.
Thanks, Rich. I'm here with Donald Smith. Donald, you're 7-1. Yep. You're in great shape going into day 2. What was your first Pro Tour qualification?
It was Pro Tour BFZ in Milwaukee, and I went 10-5 and just kept chaining them together.
So you've stayed qualified since then for every Pro Tour?
Yeah, I skipped Sydney because of the visa issues, but other than that, yep, been hitting everyone, going to Nashville, most likely going to Kyoto.
And what has this been like for you? How long have you been playing Magic, and how long were you trying to get onto the Pro Tour before you had finally qualified?
Oh, man. So I started playing in Theros, and I think basically after a month started playing, I just started grinding PTQs and being super competitive. That's just how it was, and I guess it took a year, and top 8 at a Grand Prix, and now I'm here.
And everyone just turned on you. They were like, you were like, man, and they were like getting ready for the sob story about how long it'd been, and you're like, it just took you a year to get on the Pro Tour, and now you've been sticking on the Pro Tour, and maybe looking down the barrel of, getting, to gold or something like that this season.
Yeah, if this Pro Tour goes well, I'm really on track to get gold. I have 4 Grand Prix slots left. Got 10 pro points from a last Pro Tour. It's going great this year, and it could only go better.
Awesome. Now you're working with Team Lingering Souls. Who else is doing well on the team? Travis Wu, Shaheen Sorani, probably the 2 biggest names on that team, right?
Yeah, I'm actually going to message him tonight to see how everyone finished. Travis Wu's X2 actually found that out. I don't know how Shaheen did. He started off like 4-0 and then went to 4-3. I don't know how he ended, but yeah, I'll message the group tonight and see how everyone is.
All right, well, we'll see you tomorrow. Hopefully we'll get to talk some more. Lingering Souls, he's been lingering on the Pro Tour. This could be a big breakthrough finish for him here at Pro Tour Aether Revolt. Sending it back up to you, Rich.
Thanks very much, BDM. So Donald Smith at 7-1 is ahead of the curve, because pretty sure once we get beyond 12 wins, you're in great shape. So what about other 7-1s? Martin Yuza is 7-1. Ken Yukihiro and Kentaro Yamamoto of Japan. Thien Nguyen, you've just seen in feature match action, 7-1. Here's someone else, though, another Hall of Famer from Channel Fireball Ice at 7-1. Here's Ben Stark.
Thanks, Rich. I'm here with Ben Stark, rocking the Channel Fireball Ice gear.
It's beautiful, right?
It really is, I think, my favorite jersey.
A lot of people have said that. Like, I'm not really one for aesthetics, but a lot of different people have said, you guys have the coolest jersey, CFB Ice.
Now, how the start? 7-1, great start for you. How did the team do overall? What's your sense of how they were doing? I know they were top of the tournament for a while.
Yeah, I think it was a really good day. I think I might be the only 7-1, but I think we have a lot of 6-2s. I'm not sure everybody on the team's record, but I believe Ivan Flock, Alex Hain, who else was doing really well? I know there's more. I think there's 1 or 2 more finished 6-2. I mean, as far as testing, we have a 14-person testing team. As far as CFB Ice, I think I might be the only 7-1. Well, definitely only 7-1. There might not be a 6-2. I'm not sure.
How did you feel like you guys nailed this standard format in terms of what you were expecting?
It was exactly what we were expecting, except a few more people played Mardu than we thought would happen. We thought Jeskai was the deck to beat, and I stand by it still is, and everybody kind of knew that. So a lot of other people also felt like Mardu was the way to attack Jeskai. So I think if we had to do it again, we'd probably play the same deck, but we'd probably tweak it just a little bit more for Mardu.
What is it about the Mardu deck that lets you beat the Jeskai deck, which seemed so unbeatable last weekend?
Well, when you go under them, it's really hard for them to combo you out, right? Because they have to stick either Saheeli or the 1/4 for a full turn. And if you're playing a really aggressive deck, which this deck is practically like extended Modern Zoo, whatever. Like you play turn 1 3/2, turn 2 4/4, you know. So if you're playing that aggressive of a deck, how are they going to stick Saheeli, right? Like they're not. So if they can try and stick the 1/4 maybe, and then try and win next turn with Saheeli, but it's a 1/4. You've got removal. That's a pretty bad turn 4 against a deck as aggressive as ours, and we've got removal, you know. So basically, we feel like, and look, you can lose to them, of course. Jeskai's a great deck, but we feel like if you can go under them and pressure them, they're never going to be able to just play Saheeli because you'll kill it, and then they can't combo you out. They have to beat you as a control deck. They're now a control deck with 1/4s and Saheelis in their deck. I think you're a favorite. Like, if you played a dedicated control deck with tons of spot removal and just a late game win condition, maybe you could be a favorite against aggro. But if you've got 4 Saheelis and 4 1/4s in your deck, that's 8 slots of your 32 spells, 34 spells. You're probably not going to be a favorite against a great aggro deck, you know?
So back to the draft table tomorrow morning. How did the draft play out for you in terms of what you were expecting other people to do?
Pretty much exactly as I drew it up. I had kind of a mediocre deck going, and then in pack 3, I got 3 broken rares. So I'm planning to do the same thing tomorrow. I will, draft the cards that are coming. I'll take some good commons, and then hopefully I'll get past 3 broken rares again.
But isn't that actually? I mean, you say that kind of flippantly, but isn't that actually the secret in terms of staying open, and then the good cards will find their way to you?
Well, it is true that I didn't even open one in pack 3. I actually got past 3 different broken rares in my colors, but. Yes, I found the open colors, but doesn't mean broken rares get open there, right? like it would be a lot more reasonable if I had gotten past, Thriving, like the Rhino and Tidy Conclusions and I don't know, another great common, Pima Outrider. But, getting hit with, Gonti and the Hydra and what was the other one? Oh, and Marionette Master, that's obviously luck. But yes, it is true that if you stay open, then you have a much higher chance of getting past broken rares because you don't have to literally open them. You get 2 to 3 packs to see them. So yeah, partly playing well, partly luck.
Well, I have a feeling we're going to get another chance to see Ben draft tomorrow. Probably going to be in the feature table. So for Ben Stark, 7-1, Bright Ava Marshall sending it back up to Rich at the news desk.
I don't think I've ever seen Ben Stark quite so motivated. He is really wanting this, and the teams thing seems to be a real catalyst for Ben Stark, which isn't something I would necessarily have expected, but he talked very passionately off camera about what it's meant to him, this process of developing a team and really caring about not only his own results, but everyone else's on the team. And right now, he's benefiting from it. He's at 7-1 overnight. Great stuff. Well, you see there's still one match left. They're into extra turns. That means it's time for us to bring you the day 1 end step.